Hey everyone, I go by RCK and this is going to be my first national overview for my favorite game, Dominions 5. I'm going to try my best to produce one of these national overviews every week. Unfortunately, I had to send back my microphone, so you're going to have to bear with me for a little while here until I can get my hands on a new one. Before I get started, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I will be looking forward to replying to any of your questions that you might have on this overview, or even if it's a simple, hey, how's it going? Or even if you're trying to ask on how to get started in playing this game, or should you go to play multiplayer games? There's many Discord servers made. So let's get started on the overview. If any of you've noticed so far, we will be choosing one of my favorite nations to play, which is actually the first nation I ever won a multiplayer game with, being Sceleria, the Reformed Empire. Now, a lot of people will argue this is one of the best nations in the game, especially since Middle Age is a very difficult age to play in, since there's many very strong nations, but this is one you'll normally see get rushed in the beginning. People say they have to go. If they stay too long in the game, they're going to be a problem. So to get started, let's start off with all the units here, because the units I'm going to not take as much time on. The commanders I'm going to have to spend a little bit more time on. I'm not going to read the features here and the background story of the thing, since you can read that yourself. So to start off with our first unit here, we have your average slinger. Okay, it's going to have your average human stats, very low resource cost since he's only wearing leather armor, low recruitment points. Not really worth a lot. I highly doubt you're going to be making any of these throughout your game. There's really not much to say. You can really make a lot of them since they're so cheap, but other than that, you're not going to want them. So let's bring us to our next unit here. We have our gladiators. Now they're called Rotarius. These are going to be the units you need in a pinch. Say you're under attack, you really weren't prepared at all, or say you're really dealing with high protection units or units with a high defense skill that you just can't hit. Now, the really good thing about these guys is that they're only cost 10 gold, 1 resource, and 9 recruitment points. So you're going to make an absolute crap ton of these guys whenever you want to, as long as you have the amount of gold for it. Now, what really makes these guys shine is that they not only have a net, but a 22 pierce damage trident. Pierce damage means is going to take 20% off of the enemy's protection before damage is calculated, or before the attack is calculated. So, and also having the 22 damage is really going to just tear through any high protection units. Now let's go ahead and click on this net here. So I believe you only get one net in the battle. It's a link 4. But the length really doesn't matter because you're going to be throwing it. So it can be negated by large and strong troops, so you're not going to be able to net things like giants. But you're going to be able to net things like humans, which is fine. Other than that, like I said, it can only be used once in each battle. But what happens when someone is netted, their defense skill is going to drop to 0. So every hit you perform on that unit, you're going to hit every time because they have 0 defense skill. And with that pierce 22 damage, you're going to go through any protection that they might have. We also have another gladiator. This one is just called Gladiator, by the way. I did miss this Rotarius and the other one's Gladiator. Now, exact same gold cost, resource cost, but this one's going to have a flail. Now, flails get 2 attacks versus a shield, but normally you're going to want the nets. Very, very seldomly have I ever wanted the flail over the nets. So let's get started on our Roman-esque style armies that we were going to have. To start off, we have the Velites. They're going to be your lowest on the totem pole as far as people in the Empire, as far as the army goes. They're going to have javelins and a spear. Not much to really say about them. They're average. You're going to have your average stats here for a human. Decent defense skill, though, for a human-sized unit or being a human unit. You're going to have your Legionnaire. It's just kind of a little bit of a buffed up one. You're going to have a higher protection here, a little bit more. Actually, I believe it's about the same damage, 13 and 12. Yep, 13 and 12. Just really more protection. I think you do have one less defense skill from the Legionnaire because I think you're wearing heavier armor at that point, so you can't move around as much. You're really not going to make a lot of these during any expansion that I might have. If I'm making any units, it's going to be Velites. Just you're going to make a whole mass of them um, just to really overwhelm any opponent because the javelins they have are going to be so useful. And I forgot to mention this before, this is a really main thing about the gladiators. Once they kill a unit in combat, they're going to disappear out of your army. If they get in any combat at all, if they hit something, if they get hit, they're just going to disappear. Now, if you go into a battle and one of them doesn't hit no one or doesn't get hit by anyone, they're not going to disappear. They're going to stay in the army. But that's, I believe it says here right at the bottom, says they will fight until being wounded or hit by someone in the battle before leaving. So yeah, they're really cheap. You can make them really fast, but they're good for one battle, and that's going to be it. Next, you're going to have your Hastati here. It's just going to be your short sword unit. Now this has slash damage and pierce damage at 15 altogether. It's okay. I wouldn't make these guys over Velites, and that's going to be same for majority of the units left on this roster here. The Principes are just like the Hastati, but they're just a little bit better. They have a little bit better stats. They're more of a seasoned warrior. Same for the Trari, but they're going to have a long spear with a link 4 weapon that could repel. They are old age and they're not very good at all. I wouldn't recommend ever making them because that's not what the Sceleria idea is all about. You do have a nice unit here being the standard whenever you are expanding in the very first year. Now this is going to give +1 morale to all of your units that it is grouped with, so that's going to be very useful because I believe your Velites, they do have just regular 10 morale, which is, it's okay, it's not the best, but taking 11, sometimes that might help out. Next, you do have a Sacred unit. You have Lictors. Now, Lictors, they're very good if you want to buy them. I don't recommend buying them. You could do it as like a for fun idea to patrol just because you want to. I mean, not very often are you going to need a 23 damage magical weapon. And this also has a special effect to stop dead, and it says anyone wounded, this weapon will be struck by it, and it's just a little magical 10 damage effect to it. Whenever I'm playing, I just might make a couple of these guys and put them on guard commander just for fun. Other than that, there's not much really about them. After that, you have another sacred unit, surprisingly. Have multiple sacred units. Now, these are only cap only units, so you're not going to be making many of them. This is a ethereal ghost unit. It's undead. It doesn't have the amphibian tag to it, so you will not be able to go underwater. I might make a couple of these in the very beginning just because ethereal is really good against indies in the beginning of the game. But as far as fighting people, you won't be making any of them. They do have spirit sight and stuff like that if you ever needed it, but I highly doubt you really would. Those are just very certain scenarios that you ever need anything like that. Um, so we'll start off with, I guess we can just look at the different sites that you have in your capital whenever you start the game. You have the Temple of the Dead, which you can make censors and lictors. The censors commander we haven't gone over yet, but the main thing about it is you get 3 death gems from this site. Let's go on to the next one. So we have the Temple of the Spheres, which you make another commander. You're one of your mage commanders, and you get 1 astral pearl per turn from it. And then you have your campus Scalerius, I believe that's the way you say it. And that's how you're able to recruit your shadow vestals, and you also get another gem from that. So starting the game off, you will be making 4 death gems and 1 astral pearl per turn. So let's get started on the commanders here. So to start off, you do have a national scout. I believe it's just your average scout that you would be able to recruit from anywhere. Um, it the only good thing about having this in your roster is just in case if you never find a location where you can produce scouts from fast in the game, like because normally you're going to want a decent amount of scouts to really know what's going on because knowledge is one of your most needed thing in this game. If you don't know what's going on, all you know next turn you could lose the game. I mean that's just the way it is. So it'd be nothing to have 20 scouts out. That's honestly probably nothing at all compared to what some people have. Um, Next on the roster, we do have an assassin. It's not something I ever use very often. I know people can do things like assassin expansion where you will assassinate indie commanders and then have an assassin on hold, and attack. And once all the commanders are already assassinated, all the units will just run away. It's an idea, it's there, you have it. It's not something I ever do with the nation personally, but I mean, you can do what you want to do. I mean, no one's really holding you back from anything. Next, we have our Centurion, which is one of our human commanders here that lead our troops. Now, during the early expansion of the game, these are the guys you're going to want to lead your velites that you are making in the very beginning for expansion. You do have a better commander here, which has even higher leadership, which gives you even more morale bonus to your units that you have. But honestly, you don't need to spend the extra 40 gold in making one versus him. So, not really much to say about them because you're not going to use them that much in the game. You might have 20, maybe or so units go along with your armies, being either a commander like this with a group of 20 or 30 of these guys and somewhere in the middle of your army. But other than that, that's just to counter other magics that could happen during the game. Other than that, you really won't need them. So let's get started on the real bread and butter of this nation here. And to start it off, we're going to be looking at the Scalerian Cultist. Now, if you haven't noticed from here, it says National Priest can reanimate the dead, which is the whole thing about this nation here. And just looking at it, most people say, oh, it's just a recruitable Holy One mage. But with this nation, it really takes it to that next step, having the reanimator part here. Because this turns this mage from a 45 gold, 1 resource run recruitment point. Now, I know I haven't mentioned this before, but I can only assume most people know this. Whenever you have a castle built, you can produce things that are 2 recruitment points per turn. So you can produce 2 cultists out of every castle per turn. So looking at it like that, in the reanimator, we will be able to produce around 3 to 4 skeletons per turn per cultist. So say on average, let's just say it's 3.5 because sometimes you can hit 3, sometimes you can hit 4. I'm pretty sure those are the numbers for it. So at 45 gold, that's really cheap. And being a sacred unit, that means their upkeep is going to be halved. So you're going to have extremely cheap units that make other units that are free really easily. Just to think about that, I mean, that's 18 gold a year, so it's going to be 1.5 gold a turn. I mean, it's going to be really hard to ever beat anything like that. So let's just do a little math on it. So, so we have 1.5 a turn, 3.5 units, let's say, because it's going to be an average. So that's about 0.4287 gold per turn per skeleton. That's how much it's going to cost you. 0.4287 of a gold per skeleton. I believe that's right. I may be wrong on my math. So let's just think. So you have you have 8 cultists, and that's going to be about 12 gold per turn on your upkeep. So at the end of the day, I mean, I believe that's going to make you around 28 on average, 28 skeletons a turn, and that's really hard to beat for just 12 upkeep per turn. So every 12 gold you spend in upkeep, you can get 28 skeletons. Um, this is going to really multiply as the game goes on because every province you take, you're going to want to build a castle and you're going to want to build a temple. And once you start producing cultists, I highly doubt you're ever going to stop producing cultists out of that castle. So it's really, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all if you were 50 turns into the game and you had, I don't know, 40 cultists in a castle, and that's just a castle. I mean, I've played games where I've had 20 castles, you know. It's just really, it multiplies so fast because every castle can make two, and say you have 20 castles, so you're making 40 cultists a turn. Okay, well, that 40 times 3.5, I mean, you're looking at every turn making an additional 100 plus skeletons added to your army, plus whatever you already have making skeletons. Like I said again, I'm not sure if the math on that's right. I was just doing some really quick guessing on that. Um, let's just think of it like this. So, what is the upkeep of a Hastati here? So 9 gold, and the upkeep of a cultist is 18, like I said. So you can pretty much pay 2 Hastati, which is just 2 units in your army per year for 18 gold. Now you'll have two. You know, they're going to be decent human units, decent protection, decent attack skill, decent defense skill. Or you could have a cultist for a year, which is worth 18 gold. Now, that cultist over the year, so over 12 turns, is going to make on average around 42 skeletons. So at the end of the day, who's going to win? The 2 Hastati, which just cost you 18 gold that year, or the 42 skeletons that cultist just made you? I mean, it's really interesting to really think about things like that. Um, I'll try not to stay on the cultist for too long because we'll bring you to the next mage here, which is the thaumaturg. Now, this is really going to be the backbone of every army you have around. Yeah, sure, you might have, I don't know, 5,000 skeletons walking around. If you don't have a mage core, it's not going to be worth anything. Someone can cast one spell, one late game spell, wipe absolutely everything you have. You just lost 5,000 skeletons. With a thaumaturg, you're able to do things called communions. Now, that's going to really boost whatever path that you have really high. So you're going to be able to cast very high levels of magic, which I'll go into later in the research section. And that's really going to push your skeletons to be so much more than they actually are. Not only are they going to be your thaumaturgs are going to be your communion slaves. Some of them may be your communion masters in a pinch. They're also going to be your researchers at 9 research points. Usually with this nation, I'll always go Magic 3. So that's going to push them up to 12 research a turn, which is actually pretty decent for 110 cost gold mage. I believe the upkeep for these guys, 44 gold a year, not too bad. They also can reanimate if you needed them to, but honestly, I would always keep them on researching. Let's see. Next, you have your sensor. Now, these can only be recruited in your capital if you see at the bottom of the screen there. They have high undead leadership being 80. They have leadership of 40. They're sacred leaders if you want them. They're not commanders I ever make in the game because they take very precious capital turns away from you. Excuse me. Next, we'll be going on to our last mage in this lineup here, the Grand Thaumaturg. Now, this is going to be your communion master almost all the time. The reason for that is because he gets really good paths. Not only is he going to have high death magic, he's going to be a holy 3, which you can cast Divine Blessing or other. You actually have national spells being in holy. That's going to boost you up to holy 4 if you're in a communion to cast those spells. He's also a reanimator. He is old, so he can get afflictions, but that's not really that big of a deal. The main part about him is he can get these random magic skills. So if anyone can already tell, these are going to be really good paths for you to get. Boosting up to either Astral 3, Death 3, that's going to be great. Getting a random in either water or air, that's going to be even better. There's a lot of spells you can cast that will counter other spells in either of those sections there of magic. Like, say, water. I mean, you can cast things to give all of your troops fire resistance or rain or anything like that. And then your most valuable mages, they will have the air path here. Now, they're going to be casting things. I really don't want to give it away yet. We'll go over that in the research, which we'll be heading to soon. So let's get out of here. Let's go to the game here. This is just a quick little game. I just wanted to represent things. I took an imprisoned god. These are the scales here that I took. Now, I believe I might have took Dominion 5 strength. I do believe I might have. I always take cold 3 because moving your armies around are going to be easiest when they can move over rivers. Because your undead commander, you're not going to have undead commanders. Normally, I will have my cultist leading my undead. As far as a bless goes for this nation, this is just one I didn't really spend a lot of time on it. This is just something I thought of as maybe a mage bless. For your poison resistance, you can be able to cast poison things or poison spells like Foul Vapors if you decide to go, or if you have those paths you get from a indie. Fire resistance, good for your mages because they're probably going to be casting fire wiping spells. Magical resistance is going to be good for your mages. HP plus 1 just because I could. Undead leadership plus 100. Now this is going to be mainly for your cultists here, so they'll be able to move around your undead. And it's going to be really easy because you're just going to have so many cultists around. Yes, you want them reanimating, but moving your undeads is also going to be a really big deal. It also gives it to these thaumaturgs because the thaumaturgs, they're going to be in your armies regardless because you do need a mage core. You could spend most of your time moving around with these guys, to be honest, because they're already going to be there. And just 160 undead at a time, I mean, that's going to be a good amount to be able to move around. These are the paths that I took on my commander. I did take a Divine Emperor. He's pretty good, pretty cheap. I'm trying to get the cheapest rainbow I can on the Pretender God chassis. I did take an Imprisoned for it comes in around 36 turns because you honestly don't need them for anything. Your expansion goes pretty well, and even if you stay small, it's really not a big deal. I mean, you'll be perfectly fine being a small Sceleria because you'll be able to ramp up so easily. Looking at some of the undead units here, just your troops here, they actually have 3 things they can reanimate: ghouls, soulless, and long dead warriors. I did make sure that we had all of them here. Now, these are some of your long deads. Now, they come with spears, shields, some of them come with armor, some of them come with broadswords, some of them don't come with armor. Some of them are legionnaires, some of them are velites, but they're all undead. Some of them even terrarii, which those are pretty decent ones whenever you get them. But most undead, they have really low hit points. They're just skeletons. but they might have pretty decent protection when it comes to them, depending on which ones you have. We also have things like the Soulless. Now, normally most Soulless are going to look like this, and they're just going to be your average zombies throughout the game. Really weak. They're just chaff. They go along with the rest of your skeletons. They're just there to break down walls, castle walls, siege things, and just really just swarm the enemy. Other than that, we do have the ghouls right here. Now they have a poison claw attack, and these are going to be, you really won't need it. They're going to be the people that will defend the walls, pretty much. Because skeletons, they're really not worth anything when it comes to defending, but you'll have so many it won't really matter. I'd like to really go into research next. This is a really main thing about Sceleria because, I mean, once you go into the late game, and that's going to be your main thing. It's not how many skeletons you have, it's what you can cast on the battlefield that will change the battle. So let's start off. One of your key magic paths that you're going to need in the very beginning, make sure you always have Thaumaturgy 1. That's going to give you Communion Slave and Communion Master. Normally you can get that on a random because you did go Magic 3. After that, you're going to head for Enchantment, or at least that's what I normally do. There are very good spells for you down Enchantment. If you decide not to go with the Undead Leadership, you have Revive King, which makes an Undead Commander for you to move around your troops. One of the best, I wouldn't say best, a very key spell that you want to cast during every battle is going to be hit right here at level 4, and it's going to be anti-magic. Now I believe that adds about +3 or +4 magical resistance to every unit you have on the field. And if you didn't know this already, priests can, what's the word I'm looking for, banish skeletons. So it's going to make it extremely hard for a level 1 priest to banish any kind of skeletons, and usually that's what people are going to try to throw a lot of at you. Another great spell you get here at level 4, you get Twice Born. So normally whenever I play, I'll try to Twice Born as many Grand Thaumaturgs as I can. And what this spell does is whenever they die, you get them again, but as a white mage. So they're going to be upkeep free, and that's going to be really, really good. Not only that, they're not going to be affected by as many things as a normal human would be affected by, since at that point they are dead. After this, you're going to get to level 5. Now, the best thing is it's going to be a pretty decent combat magic. Now, you're going to have a lot of skeletons, but that early on in the game, you're really going to need just masses and masses of skeletons. And the first thing you really get here is Horde of Skeletons. Now, this is going to be a spell. You're going to go into Communion, you're going to start casting a spell. Now, you can get multiple mages in on casting this. I mean, like 10, 20. It's no big deal because you're going to be wanting as many as you can. And as long as the enemy's troops can't kill them all, I mean, you're going to win. Next on our list, we're going to be heading to level 6 for enchantment. Now, this, I normally try to get, depending on the scenario, I'll try to get to level 6 for Rigor Mortis here. It also comes with another great spell called Grip of Winter. Since we're in cold, that's also going to help us a lot, and this is going to be really, really big fatigue plays. Now, when I say fatigue plays, an enemy army can't fight you back if they fall asleep on a battlefield, and that's really going to really boost your skeletons up to such. I mean, yeah, they're really, really bad warriors just normally, or soldiers at all. But once the enemy falls asleep, it's a completely different story. They're going to be able to get as many attacks in as they want, since they fell asleep on the battlefield. Man, of course. In Enchantment 7, you can get some things that really surprise your enemies with Mass Flight right here. Now this is going to be a great spell. And this is why I said you're going to really value the air element or the air randoms that you get on your Grand Thaumaturgs, because not only will this really, let's see, whenever you're storming a castle, let's say that, and you're going through the breach, now you're not going to have to worry about that. All your hundreds and thousands of skeletons aren't going to get stopped in that small little breach area in the castle. They're just going to fly over it, and they're going to attack the mages and everything as soon as the battle starts. So they're not really going to get time to really cast all the spells they want to. All the troops are not going to be in the positions they want to that they originally thought you were going to fight them in. A very key spell right here if you decide to go that far into enchantment. You also have Serpent's Blessing, which gives you poison resistance to all your. Now I know your skeletons don't need poison resistance, but your human troops along with them will still need poison resistance if you decide to do that. You'll need a crystal matrix on a nature mage to really do that so they can enter into the communion. Just to finish off, now I wouldn't go up to level 8 at that point just to get these right here, but they can be very helpful in the late game. Fire Fin, give everything fire resistance. Thunder Fin, everything shock resistance. And Frost Fin, everything cold resistance. They may come in handy. Don't forget about them. They can be very useful. Next, we're going to be heading over to, see, well, I want to head to Alteration or Evocation first. Let's go to Alteration. I believe that's a better magic path for you since you're going to be spending most of the time buffing your armies up. I mean, you could go down Evocation if you wanted to, but it's up to you at the end of the day. Just looking at Alteration here, you're not going to really see much. I mean, yeah, sure, there's things here and there for you, but until you get to really game defining magic spells, you're not going to really see anything till you get around to, which one is it level 5 or is it level 6? Level 6, here it is. So you can cast Darkness. So it blinds, well, I wouldn't say it blinds, but it essentially blinds everyone on the battlefield. Now, all of your skeletons have perfect dark vision, so it's not going to matter, but all the human troops are going to take drastic penalties to their attack skill, defense skill. It's really going to hurt them. Really great spell. Really, it's a lot of death gems to cast, high magic path, which is really no big deal for your Grand Thaumaturgs. Other than that, you have Fog Warriors here. Now this is also a really great spell because, I mean, you say you have 2,000 skeletons. Well, now all of your 2,000 skeletons now have essentially Mistform. So it's up to you. Later on, you're going to have spells like Mass Protection. Grants natural protection plus 10 to all your units. Yeah, sure, no, it's susceptible to fire for a little bit, but it really depends on who you're fighting if you want to use that or not. Now, other than that, you come here to the very bottom. You have Army of Gold, grants natural protection 20 plus 3 or 18 or higher, and also fire resistance and susceptible to shock. And then you have Army of Lead, which is pretty much the same thing, but it gives you magical resistance, which is nice too. Very, very good spells right here. I'm sure there's things I've missed so far. I'm just doing a really quick national overview of the nation. Just real quick, let's just look through Evocation. You're going to have some real good spells like Shadow Bolt, Bolt of Unlife. Shadow Blast is really good, but it's going to cost you a Death Gem per. You have Storm, which is going to be a really good spell for cast with your air path. I'm forgetting the word for it right now at the moment. Air randoms. Other than that, where is it? Where is it? I know there was one more. Wailing Winds. This is what it's called. So you're going to need one of your air randoms for this too. And like I said, air randoms are going to be really key mages in every army that you have patrolling around or marching around or sieging castles. This is going to release a wind of horrible screams. Um, now, The longer the battle goes on, the more this will take effect. What it's going to do is lower the morale of all the units until they start running. They're going to break and they're going to run away. So it's really cool, really good spell. But it's definitely a long-term spell. The longer it has going on, the longer or the more effect it will take on the troops. Now, it won't affect your troops at all, but like an army of 300 humans isn't going to be able to chop away 3,000 skeletons really fast at all, even if they're very killy units. Um, this is really going to be able to take effect. Really, really nice. I mean, you have some great spells down here too, but they're not really spells that's going to affect the whole army or affect the entire battlefield at the same time. Not saying that they're not great spells. I do think they're great spells. Um, Other than that, a little. I do think I spoke about this earlier, but every province that you're gonna take, you're gonna want to build castle. Man, of course you can't build castles in the water, but say if you took that one, that one, that one, and that one, you're gonna want to build castles. So in the ones that depends on which ones you decide to do it with and which ones you don't. But just about every castle you're gonna at least want a temple in, so you can make cultists. And then for other castles or for select castles that you decide, you're going to put a lab in it so you can produce these thaumaturs as your research monkeys in a way. Um, you're going to want a lot more just plain templed castles than labs and temples, but at the end of the day, I mean, it's good to have them everywhere. If you decide if you run into that much extra cast, but try to min max your starting position as much as you can. Um, because down the road, even though you did take a Scales Nation, you might need that money down the road. You never know. Because I mean, castles don't come cheap. Just thinking about how much you have to upgrade it. I mean, a palisade is 600 gold. To upgrade it to a castle is 300 gold on top of that, so you're already at 900 gold. Just to put a temple in there is going to be additional 400 gold, so that's going to put you at what, 1300 gold. If you want a lab in it, that's going to put you from 1300 to 1800. I mean, that's a lot of gold per turn just to develop one province. So if you could go without making mini labs and just put them in select locations where you want to make your thaumaturgs, that's your ideal scenario you have there. Other than this, I'm trying to think if there's anything I forgot to go over. The national spells. I do remember that. Okay. So we're going to actually just go here. Let's just go here, cast a spell. So all these here are your national spells that are in blue. These are actually the only national spells that you have. They're only divine spells. So you have Unholy Command. And Unholy Priest commands the enemy undead to serve him. It's like a enslaved mind in a way. I think it's only a single target per. Unholy Protection. So it grants magical resistance. Unholy Blessing, and just blesses. It's pretty much the same thing as just blessing, but it does that for undead units. Now this will give your units a power buff. I think it also makes them faster. Yep, an attack skill. Unholy Protection. It's just a larger AoE magical resistance for your undead. Apostasy. Now it's going to corrupt an enemy priest or sacred soldier. It's just going to target sacreds. I mean, at that point, enemy priests are sacreds as well, so you can just say sacreds. To join your side and fight for you. A little bit larger AoE, not as good. Now this is going to affect the entire battlefield. Normally you're not going to worry about any of these right here. It's just these Holy 3 and Holy 4 spells that you're going to want to cast, but I did want to make sure I go over them so I didn't miss anything. Um, so this is going to bless everything on the battlefield that's undead. Now this is going to give everything on the battlefield magical resistance, and that's not just your sacred, it's going to be all undead units. And the power one, of course, is going to do it for all your undead. It's going to give them power, increased speed, attack skill. I think it does strength too, but I'm not entirely sure. I'm going to have to look that up. So pretty cool, pretty good spells. They don't get anything too interesting, but you can't complain when you have that many skeletons. Overall, I believe that's going to conclude my national overview. I hope to see everyone back here next week. I'm going to try to upload every week a national overview at least, if I can get around to it. I'll try to do one every Friday. I also have some plans for things like maybe some multiplayer games I'm in. Maybe I can post some of those from start to finish. Hopefully I'll win. Maybe I don't know. Um, so I'm really working on it right now. So we'll see where this all goes. There, let's see. I think I'm going to plan on just doing Dominions for now. I might try to spread out to other areas, but I'm just going to try to keep it on this one main thing for right now. So it's gonna be good. It's gonna be okay. This is my favorite nations. It's one I want to do for a while. The one I might do next week might be the one I play a game with. I'm not too sure yet. Depends. So we'll see how it goes. So all right, guys, have a great day. See ya. It's been a lot of fun.